So, hey guys, today's project stems from this. It's made out of TPU, and it's actually for my RunCam 2. It's got the holes for the buttons, the lens, a way to slide in, and it's at 35 degrees. This didn't quite come out like I wanted it to, but after my buddy saw it, he said he needed one, but there's one problem. He doesn't have a RunCam 2. So, he gave me one of his cams. This is a SJ4000, and what we're going to do is model a tilted mount for this so that he can have the same camera angle and be able to transfer his camera from quad to quad to quad. So what we're going to need is we're going to need our basis to create our model. We want a general idea of what size the base is going to be. Now, I want this to be able to transfer from anything from X-Frame that just has the 30mm tower to Alien to Relac 210, QAVR, QAVX, whatever it happens to be. So we're going to make the base 30mm by 30mm, which is the base plate for most flight controllers. So there's always going to be a flat spot where you can mount it. So what we're going to need is we're going to need the camera to make the model from, the size of the base, micrometer to measure those, and of course pencil and paper to write everything down. So let's get to it. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we already know we want our camera angle set at 35 degrees. It's what I fly at. It's what I've been helping him fly at. It's a good place to really be at when you're flying the mini quads. It makes it easy to do the different maneuvers, inverted yaw spins, do the adverse yaw compensation so that you can center your video around the roll, and it just makes it really, really nice. So we're going to start by measuring out this, and then we'll get onto the computer and we'll model up a version of this, and then we'll create our tilt and our wrap that's going to wrap around this so that it can slide in nice and tight. We need our overall dimensions, so we need our height, length, and width. Now for this, our height is going to be 41 millimeters. Our width is going to be 24 millimeters. And our length is actually more than our model is going to be, but it's just good to have when we're making up the solder, the model. And it comes in right at 59. Now, since we already know that we want to make this 30 millimeters wide, what we can do is actually see what else we have to account for. Now, at 30 millimeters wide, we have our lens on the front to contend with. We also have our mode button on the front. We have our settings button, as well as the rear screen. And those are all going to have measurements taken so that we can put this into the model and make it the right way. So our lens is 21. Mode button is going to be 10, and our OK button is going to be 10. And so we just want to write all of that down, and we also want to write down a way that we can locate this. Now, since I'm taking all 4 dimensions, I can actually measure from the edge of the length and the height for the different lens and button. And so what we're going to do is actually measure to the center. So from the top edge, the lens is approximately 15 millimeters. And from the outer edge, it is also 15 millimeters. And then our mode button is 14 from the top and 12 from the edge. And our OK button actually looks like it's centered on the 24, so that gives us 12 from the edge either way. So that'll work, and then that's front to back, and then from the edge it's going to be, it looks like 12. So it's completely square on there. And then we'll also make a side circle for the light. And so now that we have all our dimensions, let's get on the computer and we'll start mocking it up.
So we're going to go ahead and open this up, start a new project. We're going to start off by getting a box, and the box is going to be like a mother mold to our camera, so we're going to make it the same dimensions. So we got 41 by 24 by 59, and that's our camera. So we have the box the same size. We're going to rotate it around, Control T. We're going to rotate it around so that it sits the way we're normally used to looking at the camera. And then the next step is going to be adding all of the parts that are going to stick out through our mold. So we're going to start with the biggest feature, which is going to be the lens. And if we start at the corner, then we can use our measurements off the edge and just move the cylinder around to where it's placed correctly on the camera. Now, we have to put in the radius, but we only know the diameter. The diameter was 21, so the radius is going to be half that, 10.5. And we can just go ahead and leave the height at 20. But again, we're going to select it, Control T, and then we're going to move it down 15 millimeters, so negative 15. And we're going to move it in another negative 15 from the edge. Enter. Oh, come on. Negative 15. And there we go. That's going to create our hole when we put it around the wrap. Next is going to be our cylinder for our mode button. That has a diameter of 10, so our radius is going to be 5. We'll leave our height at 20, and we'll go ahead and leave it connected up to the corner. Control T again. It's going to be negative 14 from the top, and we're going to move it over 12 from the side, and we'll go ahead and hit enter and leave it there. If we rotate this around, we can get to where our OK button is. We're going to add another cylinder, and if we center it on this edge, we only have to move it in because we know it's 12 millimeters from either side, and the width is 24. The radius on this is going to be 5 as well, and we're just going to select that, Control T, do our little arrow, and move that in 12. And so that's it. That's basically going to be our mother mold for the camera. And this is just very basic. Next, we're going to create another box. And if we center it on the back here, we know we want at least 2 millimeters front and back, top and bottom. So we're just going to add 2 to our box. So since we are doing it on a different plane than what's flat, our length, height, and width is going to be different, but we'll just have to take care of that. Our length is our width, and so our width is going to be 30 because that's how wide we want our base is. We want our width to be 45, so that'll give us 2 millimeters top and bottom. And then our height is going to be the width of our camera, which is going to be that 28. So that'll give us 2 millimeters on either side of everything else, 2 millimeters top and bottom, and that will do it. So we're going to go ahead and move this, Control T, and then we're going to move it back to where it's basically centered inside of everything else, which is going to be -26. So we have our 2 millimeters still exposed and 2 millimeters out the front. Go ahead and hit enter, and that's what's going to hold our camera. Now with the TPU, we're not going to do any resizing of the camera because we're going to rely on the stretch of the TPU to actually give us our holding strength. It kind of has a rubberized feel to the camera as well as the TPU. So if we let it stretch a little bit, it'll give us a better hold on everything else. Now before we cut out the center section of this using our camera, we want it to cut out the cylinders as well. So if we go up to this combine tool and we merge, our target mesh is going to be the main body, and then our source is going to be the 3 cylinders. Hit enter, and now that's all combined as one piece. So if we come back to our combine tool and we're going to subtract overlapping parts, our target mesh is going to be the camera, our source mesh is going to be the strap. Go ahead and hit enter. Oh, got that reversed. So our target mesh is going to be the strap, and our source is going to be the camera. Hit enter, and so then that gives us our box that's going to hold our camera, and it's got all the cutouts to where we'll have access to the buttons as well as slipping over the lens, and we're not going to have any issues with that. Next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to create the base for this. So we're going to have another box, and we're just going to make this a full cube because we're going to cut it in half. So 30, our width 30, and our height 30. So now we have a perfect cube, and we need something to actually cut it. So we're going to actually take a box, and we're going to set it directly on top of it. For our width, we're going to leave it at 30 because that's going to be as wide it is. Or for our length, excuse me, our length is going to be 30. Our width is going to be a little bit more since we are going to put this at an angle. Let's go ahead and do 50 there. And for our height, we're going to want it to be as small as possible because we're just trying to cut a line through the box, and then we'll separate the solid and cut it out. So on this program, 0.001 is the smallest height that you can get. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. We're going to reselect it, Control T, and we're going to drop it down about halfway into the box, right at 15, and then set our angle at 35 degrees. Hit enter, and now we have our source that's going to go ahead and cut our box for us. So we're going to go back up to the combine tool, use subtract. The target is going to be the box, the source is going to be the cutting plane. We hit enter, and now we've cut our angle for our box. We can go ahead and select just one side of the box and hit delete, and now we have our wedge. Now if we use our snapping tool, we can select the bottom of our strap and the top of the box, and it'll snap to center there. So now we have our angle, we have our strap, we have everything that we need. For printing purposes, we're going to round off all the edges of the bottom, and it'll shorten it up a little bit, but it'll still allow us enough room to get a battery strap through there. So underneath your modify tools, you have this fillet, and with the fillet, if you hold shift, you can select multiple edges, and we're just going to hit every edge that we have in here, because the other thing that we're going to try and do is hollow out the inside of this and reduce a little bit of weight. So for the fillet radius, we'll go ahead and start off with 3 and see what that looks like. And that looks pretty good. There is a little bit of separation between the front lip edge, but we can get rid of that fairly easy by undoing the fillet, and we'll just go ahead and merge the two boxes. Hit enter. Now it's all one piece. Then if we go in and we go up to modify and fillet, we can select the edges that we just had selected, and this will allow for the program to account for us wanting the box to be part of it. So if we give it a fillet of 3, that looks pretty nice. It's a nice small base, and it's going to give us plenty of room to put our battery strap through, but we got to make that hole. Now the way we're going to make that hole is we're actually going to use the shell tool, and we're going to select this face, and you see it shells out everything, but we have this line all the way through the outside that we don't want, because our inside thickness is 0.8, and we want to keep that at 0.2 so everything stays solid. So there's 2. Go ahead and hit enter. And then the last thing that we're going to do to finish cutting our hole, since we shelled it out, it's still got a bottom. If we select this and go up to extrude, and then we'll put a negative value in here, and that'll push the back wall out and finish everything up for us. So now we've got one solid piece, looks like a camera mount, and so the only thing that we have left to do is export this. Come over here, export as 3D, STL. We're going to hit OK. And then you're just going to name it. Now this is the SJ4000 camera mount, and it's at 35 degrees, so I will name it as such. And then we'll get over to Cura, set up our print, and we'll start printing it out. Once we have that saved, we can go ahead and close this out. Open up Cura. Here we are in Cura. Just need to open the file. It's going to be in our Downloads tab. SJ4000 35 degrees. Going to go ahead and open that up. Now, with all the red areas are areas that we have massive overhangs that we need to account for. Now, the way that I took care of this is we're actually going to print this model on its side. Now, the two holes that we have in the side here are going to be much smaller bridges than the large one, so we're going to want to lay it down on its left side. And so, click on the model, hit rotate, and we're going to rotate it along the green axis, 90 degrees. And I like to click lay flat just to be 100% sure that we're going to have a good print. For the quality, we're going to do 1.5 millimeter layer height. For the shell, the wall thickness is going to be 1, and for each side of the wall, that's going to give us our 2. So the entire outside is going to be solid. So we don't have to worry about thickness there. We don't have to worry about infill. The material is TPA, so we're going to have a printing temperature of 210. I'm going to have my build plate at 80C. 100% flow rate. Speed, we want to go very slow because it's TPU. So we're going to go ahead and do 15 millimeters a second. Enable cooling so that we can get good bridges. We don't need any support because the TPU doesn't really do support well. Adhesion, gonna go ahead and do a brim. We'll just cut those off the edges. Later we'll do a very small brim, and that's gonna be it. So we're gonna go ahead and save this, and we'll get it over to the printer.
came off of the printer, and this is what it looks like. We got our hole for our lens, which is nice and clean. These two smaller holes need a little bit of cleanup, and we got rid of the flashing. And here we have our camera, and we're just going to see if it fits. And it does. Fits nicely around the outside of the lens. We have access to our buttons, so we can push them. And our battery strap is going to have plenty of space to go through. And it's nice and tight. If I hold it, the only way it can slide out is one way, and it's nice and tight. No worries. Hope you liked it. Be sure to like, share, favorite, subscribe, whatever you want to do. We'll see you next time.